Hi everyone, welcome to our session of ITIL Change Management. Today we're going to break down what change management is, why it matters, and walk through simple examples to see how it works in real life. We're going to be taking questions at the end, like I mentioned before. And if you have anything you'd like to put in the chat, please feel free to do that. Just to confirm there, Ash, can you see the presentation okay right now? Okay,
that's good.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So today I'm joined with my colleague Ashokar Rahman. He's a technical solution expert at Provence. He has over 5 years of experience on technical solutioning. He drives customer engagement and does product demos, customized trainings for our customers, and he's also a Microsoft certified trainer and a Power Platform functional consultant. I'm Ragini Tyagi, and I have over 10 years of experience in IT. I work as a customer success manager at Provence. I have experience in internal IT as well as MSP markets. I'm an ITIL certified person. Okay, so change management is a feature in our ITSM tool. And once you purchase our ServiceTeam ITSM tool from Provence, you get change management with other features. So you can leverage it and you can basically customize it as per your environment. We are highly embedded in Power Platform, and you can see here that we align with ITIL standards and we include all the processes which come in ITIL. So your incident, problem, change, and service requests, everything is embedded in our platform, and it can be leveraged once you purchase ServiceTeam. But our today's focus is primarily on change management. But if you want to see the product as a whole, or if you want to request for a demo, I'll be sharing out details towards the end of the presentation, and you can request for a demo from our teams. Moving on, I'm going to focus on what change management in ITIL and why change matters. So changes can be chaotic. You can think of outages, security issues, unhappy customers. And with a structured process, we can plan, test, communicate changes properly in ITIL change management process. Now, in ITIL, it is defined with other processes around it. So just to highlight, I'm sure most of you are already aware of change management in ITIL, but this presentation basically focuses on aligning what our understanding it is with yours. So we're trying to align ourselves on how we see change management within our tool, and this will be a refresher for many of you. So this is just a sort of setting of expectation on what we see change management as within our tool. To start with, every change management process goes through, or when it comes through, it is overseen by a dedicated, designated key role committee. Now, when change roles can be, you can think of change roles as your cast list for a proper change management. Now, when each role plays their part in a specific manner, changes can be performed more smoothly and safely, and we can ensure that changes are done in a very controlled environment. So this is your change management roles, which we define through ITIL. To start with, we have the change requester. So a change requester is a person who initiates or starts a change. You can think of the change requester as also the implementer or the manager or a member of the CAB or the reviewer of change. So this is where the change starts. This is where the request starts. This person basically details on the purpose of the change, the impact of the change, and the rollback action for that change. So also, this person or the requester is the key role which will coordinate the change with other stakeholders. So his role or her role is extremely critical when it comes to initiating the change. Next is your change manager. You can think of the change manager as the person who is like an air traffic controller of the change process. The person will review, assess the request for change. He or she will ensure the risks and the impacts and evaluate and schedule the changes. Of course, this person can also chair your CAB meetings. Um, a critical responsibility of the change manager is to document the changes and basically work around the compliance of the changes. So his role or her role is extremely critical here when it comes to overviewing the whole change process. Next, you have the CAB or the Change Advisory Board. These are a group of stakeholders who will be evaluating your changes. They will see the impact of the change. They will see where the risks are with that change and review the change and approve it accordingly. This committee or the group of people will approve or reject your normal or emergency changes. They provide their expert inputs on the risks of the change and align the change with your business roles or business goals of the change which is coming along. Now, moving back to the first role, I'm going to talk about the implementer. Like I said, a change requester can also be your implementer. This person actually carries out that change or performs the change. So any sort of execution which is happening according to your implementation plan is done by the change implementer. In the whole cycle of implementing the change, there might be certain success notes or there might be certain success reviews which will happen, or some rollback operations which happen. So all sorts of documentation will be done by the implementer. Next in line is your change reviewer or the auditor. Now, this role is extremely critical because everything is being done by the book is ensured by this role. This person will perform your post-change analysis, post-change implementation reviews, and anything which has been deviated from the rules or by the implementation plan is recorded by the change reviewer. So lessons learned, mistakes, anything which needs to be captured is done by the change reviewer or the auditor. Moving on, in ITIL, there are common change scenarios. So anything which changes around you or around your organization can be thought of as a change scenario. Now, when you're thinking of common change scenarios, these can relate to your business practices, processes, or technical changes. The first one, which I'm going to talk about, is your business changes. So the first thing which comes to your mind when it comes to business changes is the impact it has on your overall business of your organization. So if there is, say, a new product launch, a new release which is coming in, or even something like new market capture. Think of scenarios like mergers or acquisitions which have happened recently in your organizations. These are all business change scenarios and should be sorted or processed in a particular manner. Next, I'm going to talk about process changes. Now, again, ITIL defines these processes like incident management, problem management, knowledge management, and these are very intertwined. These are interlinked with change management. Say if you have an incident which caused an escalation, this will cause for a change management. This will create a request for change. And that's where other processes come in and intertwine between change management. For instance, if there's a problem which was captured, there was root cause analysis which was done with problem management, and now you want to address it with a change request. This is where your change combines with your problem management. So these are process-based changes. The last scenario, which is very common, which you will encounter frequently in your daily life, is technical changes. Anything which goes around your servers, your security updates, patch management, cloud migration, all the assets which are technical assets which are changing within your organization calls for a technical change. So these are your technical changes. Now in ITIL, change is defined in three categories or three types. The first one is your emergency change. A change which has a high impact on your organization. These are critical changes which need to be performed in a specific manner because they will have a high risk associated with them. Think of, say, high vulnerability patches, which will affect multiple servers in your organizations if not performed properly. They will create a vulnerability which is high in impact. So these are emergency changes, and they need expedited approvals from your CAB. They need ASAP approval, they need attention from your CAB, they need analysis from your CAB, and need to be addressed immediately. The second one is your standard change. Now, these standard changes do not require your CAB to come in. These are more of your regular changes, which are happening in a very recurring manner in your organization. Like password resets, access lists, or any sort of upgrades which are going on, driver upgrades which are happening. These are things which you will see in your routine daily life and do not require CAB to be intervened. The next one is your normal change. Now, these are not emergency changes. They have mid or low impact in risk assessment, but they do require your CAB to come in. A classic example can be, say, you are migrating from a particular cloud to another cloud, or if you're installing a new tool in your environment. So this will require your CAB to come in and give an approval and a review, but these are not high impact changes like your emergency change that they require immediate attention from the CAB. They can follow a sequence of approval cycles. Lastly, when we're talking about change classification, very intuitive classification here. When you're talking about changes, they can either be permanent, temporary, or they can just be a restart service. So when you're talking about permanent changes, these are things which cannot be reversed. They are irreversible changes. So for instance, you have an old piece of software which you are replacing with a new technology. This is an irreversible change. You cannot undo this change. Another example can be, say, your entire server is getting an upgrade. You're getting a hardware upgrade, you're getting a software upgrade. So these are permanent changes. So they will go as a permanent change request. Temporary changes, as the name suggests again, these are intuitive changes which can be undone, which can be reversed back. So an example can be a person comes in, he's an auditor and he's auditing your systems. So you need temporary access for this person. You have given them temporary access. So this is a temporary change. So it can be rolled back to the original state. So these are temporary changes and can be modified back. A restart service, again, these are things which you must have used frequently in your environment where, say, you do an upgrade or if you change things around in your services or systems and you just do a restart of that service. So this is a restart change. Now, in ITIL, change management is defined in a life cycle. Typically, a change happens and it will go through certain phases. So the first phase here is define. Then you assess, review, schedule, and finally implement your change. Now, to actually demonstrate the phases or the life cycle of these changes, we have two scenarios to demo today for you. Ash will be doing these demos for you. And the first scenario, which we'll be talking about, is going to be a standard change where we have a routine firmware patch for network devices. The second one is going to be an emergency reboot of a HA server post-patch implementation. This will require your CABs. So I'm going to pass it on to Ash now, who will be doing the demo for you. Go ahead, Ash.
Thanks, Ragini. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on change management. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. Ragini, can you confirm me? Okay, awesome. So today I will walk you through a standard change procedure, focusing on a routine firmware patch like Ragini mentioned, which is for network device, along with an emergency change, which is for rebooting high availability servers post-patch procedure. Now let me share my screen so that I can show you, and let's get started from here. Okay. So the first change that I was mentioning, that's basically routine firmware patch for network devices. And let's understand what this change entails first. So, firmware updates are essential for keeping our network devices secure, stable, and up to date with the latest features. And this routine firmware patch is scheduled within a defined maintenance window, ensuring minimal disruption to business operations. Now, let's review this. Review the key steps that are involved in managing this particular change. Starting here, you can see the business process flow at the top, right? Which begins from define to close, including assessing that particular change or authorizing it with some approval process, scheduling it, implement review, and all that. Now, starting here, also you can see there are basically three type of change requests that we do support, which is industry standard, starting with standard, emergency, and normal change. We have the concept of change template as well. It's like a ticket template. So, for example, if you end up doing a particular change every week or so, you can just use the change template so that it will automatically fill up all those informations that you have to do it manually. So rather than that, you can just use the change template and it will be filled out. Then you have the categorization, classification there, and you can also see the change target type. So within the process, we also captured the change target type because sometimes this could be a configuration item where we record the primary CI, as you can see here, probably just a core switch we're capturing, right? But sometimes it might be a server or a service or a service group. In that particular case, you can see it's asking for the primary service, or it could be a service group. So depending on what type of change target type you're selecting, it's asking for that particular group or that particular CI or the service. And additionally, we use the concept of a change notice here. If you look at the screen now, so this is basically the change notice, and it is for the service desk agents most of the time. This is valuable for them because it helps them stay informed about upcoming rollouts or changes, say, essentially serving as an announcement to prepare impacted stakeholders. So in most cases, we see the service desk agents doesn't have access to the change management for obvious reasons. So with the concept of change notice, if you publish that, at least they will get some idea about what are the rollouts coming out soon or what will be changed and all that. Now, let's move to the approval process. So let's say from define stage to assess. Now we are under the authorized stage where you're actually doing the approvals. And when we think of the approval process, the first thing that comes to our mind is probably a change advisory board. And Ragini talked a lot about all those different general approval process. So let's say I want all the approvals to be a part of this authorized stage. So I can select that gap designated stage here, that it will be authorized stage. And then I can put a stage block even if I want, so that if there is a stage block, it's not going to bypass that. So somebody has to approve it under the authorized stage. Then it can go to schedule, implement, or review. Now, if you look at the approval process for network firmware patch, so sometimes what you tend to do is just using one type of approval, one cab approval could be repurposed for different type of change request as well. In this case, maybe we have just this cab approval and those people just for network firmware patch. So every time we're doing network firmware patch, it will send out notifications to these four people and they're responsible for approving that um, change request. And after getting that approval from them, it will go to the next steps. And when we talk about the approval process, we have very sophisticated Microsoft Teams approval, along with Microsoft Outlook, where the managers or these people can see the details of that particular change and they can just approve it from there. Now, in terms of services, CIs, and Windows, we saw a little bit before, like if we select the change target type, CI or service group, we can capture the primary CI, but that's just one. But in most cases, it could be more than one affected services or affected CIs there, right? So this is where we capture the rest of the services CIs, and you can also see the service window I'm going to cover on later. So here, Let's start with the affected services. So rather than just one, maybe by this particular change, there are a lot of affected services. So we can see all those affected services, including the type of that service, the criticality, whether it's sometimes it could be mission critical or it could be business critical, and also the service group it belongs to, and also the service manager. So it could be different services for different groups, service group, and also they could belong to a different service manager. So you can capture all those details from the affected services. In terms of affected CIs, we can see for this particular change request, maybe just five of them are affected by this particular change request. So we can see all those affected CIs, and these are the affected CIs that's beside the primary CI that we captured at the beginning. And on the right side, you see the requested target service window. This is where, as a change requester, I can submit a timing for that particular change, or whoever is part of this change management, being a requester, you can submit different timings for that particular change. So we can see three different timings. All of them are for the same duration, but we can see three different dates there and three different timings. And those are the requested target service window, right? And one of them is confirmed from the manager who is responsible for doing this change, and that's basically the active service window for now. So it's going to happen, let's just say an example, on 10th of March for 2.5 hours. So that's the active service window for now. Now, looking into the work steps here, so that's basically the work plan template. And the way I describe it, it's basically to help you what you're going to do for that particular change request. For example, in this case, farmer patch for network devices, these are all the work steps, which is technically divided by the duration, right? So we scheduled it on 10th of March for 2.5 hours. And what you're going to do for that particular change, you can see it from the estimated duration. So that's the breakdown for that 2.5 hours. But what's more important is all those different work steps, right? So maybe the first work is doing a pre-change validation and backup. In between, maybe you're sending out notification to the stakeholders or some post-deployment validation. And at the end, it could be just closure and documentation, which is basically an investigation. So all those work steps you can follow along once you're just doing that particular change for network devices. And you can just repurpose this, reuse this particular change template if it's similar work steps for any other changes related to your network devices or anything like that. So that's basically the work plan template and how it works, including your time duration and all that. Also, you can capture the post implementation review. So, for example, sometimes this is really critical because you want to capture what happened on that particular change, right? So, whether it met outcomes or not, if it's yes, then you're good. Sometimes it could deviate from the plan. If it got deviated from the plan, you want to capture the plan deviation type. Sometimes it could be some unexpected issue encountered, right? Or maybe the resource was not available. So this type of information you can always capture under the post implementation review there. And not just that, if there are any follow-up notes on this particular change, you can capture those information under the follow-up notes here. So just to summarize this, and throughout this process, obviously clear communications and documentations are vital. We'll track and document all steps, approvals and outcomes to maintain compliance and facilitate the continuous improvements. And this particular routine farmer patching is crucial part of network management. We all know that, right? Which technically enhances security and performance. And following a structured change management process like this, like a standard change, ensures the process is efficient, transparent, and has minimal impact on the users. Now, besides this, let's have a look at another change, which is emergency, like emergency reboot for high availability servers post patch, like Ragini was mentioning at the beginning of the call, that we'll go through two of the changes. So the first thing you will notice here that it has a different business process flow. So rather than all those different stages, and it's an emergency change, it's just going through define stage, schedule stage, and close stage, right? And we can see the type is showing emergency here. So it really depends on different companies or in different organizations, because in does emergency change require an approval process? Yes, but it really depends. Sometimes it just bypass because normal approvals when necessary. So in short, emergency changes exist to restore service or prevent major incidents, right? So waiting for a full change advisory meeting is not practical in most cases. However, ITIL still expects some level of accountability, even if it's after the fact that it doesn't require, right? So it depends on the organization whether you want it or not. Now, if you look at here, we have the type emergency, the contact that it came from, the primary CI, on those informations are pretty much same. The only difference we have noticed here so far is the business process flow. Then if we go to the services CIs and windows, you can see that these are the affected services for this particular emergency change, all those affected CIs as well. Now, in terms of requesting for a service window, this is more serious. This is an emergency change, so rather than like 3 4 people are submitting, it's just a one requested target service window we can see, and that's going to happen on 3rd of March for just 30 minutes. It's an emergency change, right? And that one got approved by the manager, so we are just going doing 30 minutes for that particular emergency change. Now, in this case, if I go to work and looking into the emergency reboot, that particular work plan template, and by looking into the work steps, I can see for this emergency change is basically divided by that 30 minutes, right? So there are some prep works we can see, pre-reboot health check, or again the stakeholder notification, and again rollback or closure and documentation. So different steps. You can always have work plan template for different type of change requests. It could be emergency or normal or even different scenarios that you end up doing every week or so. So that's pretty much from the emergency reboot, and the basic differences between a standard change or an emergency change. Now, the next piece I want to cover from the change management is the change Kanban. And change Kanban is most likely, from a manager's perspective, it looks like the dashboard for the change managers. So, for example, if I'm the change manager, this is really important for me, because rather than going through all those different changes that I have, I can just go to the change Kanban and I can see I have 14 of them under defined stage. I can see the progress bar. Okay, this one is an emergency change, 85% done. This is standard change, 25%. So all of them, I can just see all those information right from the Kanban view. I can go to planning and analysis, and it's going to show me how many of them under assess stage, right? 4 of them, probably 12 of them under authorized stage. If I go to finish tab, I can see 4 of them under review. So pretty much almost at the end of that cycle of the change request for these 4 changes. But in some cases, if I just want to look into one of the changes, I can just click on that, and it's going to take me to that particular change request along with the business process flow and all the details, so that if something needs to be modified there with the right permissions, obviously I can do that, being part of the change management, being a change requester. I can change it, submit it again, so that it can just finish the process of that particular change request. And the last piece here in today's demonstration I want to talk about, which is the change calendar. And this is really important, because let's say if we just look into our both changes, one of them was the emergency change on 3rd and 10th. We have the routine patch firmware change for the network devices. So what's important here is let's just talk about change calendar a little bit. So change calendar is a centralized schedule, right, which displays all planned and approved changes to your IT system and services. It provides visibility across different teams, helping to avoid conflicts, reduce risk by highlighting overlapping changes or blackout periods. And organizations use it to align technical changes with business priorities, ensuring minimal disruption during critical times. So here, if we look at this particular emergency change, or our regular the standard change, you can see it's still available for booking. The availability status is 100%, and when it's going to happen, if there is any affected services there, all those details can be exposed through the change calendar there. And by offering a clear view of upcoming activities, the change calendar supports better communication, governance, and decision making in change management. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's demonstration regarding the change management. Again, thanks everybody for your attention today. I encourage questions and discussion following this webinar. Yeah, that's it. Over to you, Ragini.
Thank you, Ash. So we do have a question in the chat. I will just share that question with you. So Charles has asked, how do you change, how do the change notifications work? These are posted or listed somewhere or emailed?
Yeah, so in terms of notification channel, so as it's part of our solution, ITSM service team, Provence service team, so we do use the email for notification. So at any point, if you want to send out a notifications, you can set it up in any stage that, okay, notifying the stakeholders in most important cases, you can always do that with email. Yes.
And I think it can be done with Teams as well, but that has to be set up with the Cloudflow.
With some configuration. Yeah.
Yeah, with some configurations there. Any other questions? Okay, so when we're doing these discovery calls with customers, we do encounter certain questions from customers. We encounter certain situations where customers are at, and I wanted to cover these as well in our Q&A session. So when we ask them what their current change plan is or how do they coordinate change initiatives, we get very interesting response. Some of them tell us it's a mix of PowerPoint plans, email updates, or just spreadsheets. So based on your change manager or project manager, every change in organizations work differently. And this is a common problem which we see. And this is where ServiceTeam ITSM can standardize your change plans and centralize them. It can help you get that consistency and better reporting. And we can set that for you, and it can basically run smoothly in your environment based on your requirements. Another question which we ask our customers is, how do they measure the benefits that can be expected when there is a structured change management? And many customers find it difficult to answer this one because they have different departments have different needs, they have different timelines. So it's very difficult for them to track these. And this is where ServiceTeam ITSM can be extremely helpful, because we create your Kanbans, we give you the calendars, and in turn give you clear communication, avoiding any conflicting messages among your teams, and setting like the same page or the same stage for everyone to be on and do a change in a more mannered fashion. So these are certain scenarios which we come across, and many more actually, not just restricted to these two. So that brings us to the end of our presentation today. But if you have any further questions, or if you want to get demos from us, please feel free to mail us back on sales@provence.com. One of our account managers will reach out to you and set up demos for you, and it'll be Ash doing those demos for you. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to assist you. Have a nice and wonderful rest of your day, evening, based on your time zone. And it was a pleasure doing this presentation for you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar.